What if I told you that becoming a millionaire isn't just about hard work and smart investments? What if the path to wealth was paved with sacrifices so extreme, they'd make most people turn back? We've all dreamed of financial freedom, of never worrying about bills again. But at what cost? Today we're pulling back the curtain on the sacrifices the ultra-successful make to reach those dizzying heights of wealth. And let me tell you, it's not for the faint of heart. Forget what you've heard about avocado toast and daily lattes. The real sacrifices? They cut much, much deeper. Imagine missing your child's first steps because you're closing a deal. Picture yourself working through Christmas, New Year's, and every holiday in between. Envision a life where your relationships crumble because your ambition always comes first. These aren't hypotheticals. These are the real-life stories of people who've clawed their way to millionaire status. And they're just the tip of the iceberg. But here's the kicker. Even after all that sacrifice, there's no guarantee of success. The road to wealth is littered with the dreams of those who gave everything and still fell short. So ask yourself, how far would you go? What would you give up? Your time, your relationships, your health, your very identity? In the next few minutes, we're going to explore the dark underbelly of wealth creation. We'll hear from those who've made it to the top and those who lost everything trying. We'll uncover the sacrifices that no one talks about, the ones that'll make you question whether the juice is really worth the squeeze. Buckle up. This isn't your typical rags to riches story. This is the raw, unfiltered truth about what it really takes to become a millionaire in today's world. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll be asking yourself, is it really worth it? Let's start with the most obvious sacrifice, time. But we're not just talking about long hours at the office. We're talking about a complete and utter devotion to your goal that consumes every waking moment of your life. Meet Sarah, a tech entrepreneur who sold her company for $50 million at the age of 35. Sounds like a dream, right? But let's rewind and see what it really took. I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, for 5 years straight, Sarah reveals. I missed my sister's wedding, my nephew's birth, and my grandmother's funeral. I lost friends because I never had time for them. My family, they became strangers. But it's not just about missing out on life events. It's about the constant, grinding pressure, the weight of knowing that every minute not spent working is a minute your competition might be getting ahead. I developed insomnia, Sarah continues. I'd wake up in cold sweats, terrified that I'd missed an email or forgotten a deadline. My health deteriorated. I gained weight, lost hair, and aged a decade in those 5 years. And Sarah's story isn't unique. It's the norm among self-made millionaires. But time isn't the only thing on the chopping block. Let's talk about relationships. John, a real estate mogul worth $20 million, puts it bluntly. I've been divorced 3 times. My kids, they resent me. Sure, I can buy them whatever they want now, but I can't buy back the time I wasn't there. The irony isn't lost on John. He built his empire to provide for his family, only to lose them in the process. And it's a common thread among the ultra-successful. Relationships become collateral damage in the pursuit of wealth. But here's where it gets even more intense. Many millionaires report sacrificing not just their time and relationships, but their very identity. I became someone I didn't recognize, admits Mark, a hedge fund manager who amassed a fortune of $100 million by age 40. I used to be kind, empathetic, always ready to help others. But to succeed in my field, I had to become cutthroat, ruthless. I made decisions that cost people their jobs, their savings, sometimes even their homes, all in the name of profit. This moral sacrifice is perhaps the most insidious of all. It's not just about working hard or making tough choices. It's about fundamentally changing who you are as a person. But let's dig even deeper. What about physical health? We've touched on it, but the reality is far more shocking than most realize. Dr. Lisa Chen, a cardiologist who specializes in treating high-net-worth individuals, paints a grim picture. I see patients in their 30s and 40s with the hearts of 70-year-olds. Chronic stress, lack of sleep, poor diet. It's a recipe for disaster. Many of my patients have suffered heart attacks, strokes, or developed chronic conditions like diabetes and hypertension. The irony is palpable. These individuals sacrifice their health to accumulate wealth, only to then spend that wealth trying to regain their health. But it's not just physical health at stake. Mental health takes a massive hit too. The pressure is immense, explains Dr. James Roberts, a psychologist who works with high-achieving entrepreneurs. Many of my clients suffer from severe anxiety, depression, and even suicidal thoughts. They've achieved their financial goals, but at what cost? They're miserable, isolated, and often struggle with substance abuse as a coping mechanism. This mental toll extends beyond the individual. Families suffer, children grow up with absent or emotionally unavailable parents, and the cycle of dysfunction often continues into the next generation. But perhaps the most unexpected sacrifice is one that many don't realize until it's too late: the sacrifice of purpose and fulfillment. I achieved everything I thought I wanted, confesses Rachel, a self-made millionaire who built a chain of successful restaurants. The houses, the cars, the vacations. But I felt empty. I realized I'd been so focused on making money that I'd forgotten why I wanted it in the first place. This existential crisis is a common thread among those who've sacrificed everything for wealth. They reach the top of the mountain only to find that the view isn't what they expected. But let's pause for a moment and consider something even more chilling. What about those who make all these sacrifices and still don't make it? The harsh reality is that for every success story, there are countless others who sacrificed just as much but fell short of their goals. They too missed their children's milestones, ruined their health, and compromised their values. But they don't have millions in the bank to show for it. Take Alex, for example. He poured his life savings and 10 years of grueling work into a tech startup. "I was sure I was going to be the next big thing," he says, his voice heavy with regret. "I mortgaged my house, maxed out my credit cards, borrowed money from friends and family. I worked 20-hour days, slept in the office, barely saw my kids. And in the end, the company failed. I lost everything." Alex's story is a stark reminder that there are no guarantees in the pursuit of wealth. The sacrifices are real and immediate, but the payoff is always uncertain. But even for those who do make it, there's often a price that goes beyond personal sacrifice. Many self-made millionaires admit to ethical compromises that haunt them long after they've achieved financial success. "To get ahead in my industry, I had to turn a blind eye to some questionable practices," admits David, a former executive at a multinational corporation. "We outsourced labor to factories with appalling working conditions. We lobbied against environmental regulations that would have cut into our profits. At the time, I justified it as just business. Now, I'm not so sure I can live with those decisions." This moral cost is often overlooked in discussions about wealth creation, but it's a reality that many grapple with. The drive to succeed at any cost can lead to choices that have far-reaching consequences, not just for the individual, but for society and the planet as a whole. But perhaps one of the most overlooked sacrifices in the pursuit of wealth is the loss of simple joys and authentic experiences. Emily, a high-powered attorney who built a net worth of $15 million by age 45, reflects on this loss. "I was so focused on the future, on the next big case or the next promotion, that I forgot to live in the present. I can't remember the last time I watched a sunset without checking my phone or had a meal without thinking about work. It's like I forgot how to just be." This constant state of striving, of never being satisfied with what you have, can rob life of its inherent beauty and meaning. The pursuit of wealth becomes all-consuming, leaving no room for the small moments that truly make life worth living. But it's not just the millionaires themselves who pay the price. The sacrifices often extend to their children, creating a generational impact that's rarely discussed. Dr. Sarah Thompson, a child psychologist specializing in affluent families, paints a sobering picture. "I see children of self-made millionaires struggling with a unique set of issues. They have everything money can buy, but they often lack the one thing they truly need: their parents' time and attention. This can lead to feelings of abandonment, low self-esteem, and a distorted view of what's truly valuable in life. These children grow up in the shadow of their parents' success, often feeling pressure to live up to impossible standards. Some rebel while others become workaholics themselves, perpetuating the cycle of sacrifice and wealth accumulation. But let's delve even deeper into the psychological toll of this relentless pursuit of wealth. Many millionaires report a phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation, the tendency for humans to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events. When I made my first million, I was ecstatic, shares Michael, a successful day trader. But that high wore off quickly. Soon I was chasing 2 million, then 5, then 10. It's never enough. You're always comparing yourself to someone who has more, always feeling like you're falling behind. It's exhausting, and frankly, it's soul-crushing. This constant state of dissatisfaction can lead to a never-ending cycle of sacrifice and striving, with no real increase in happiness or life satisfaction. It's a treadmill that many find themselves unable to step off even when they've achieved levels of wealth beyond their wildest dreams. But perhaps one of the most insidious sacrifices is the loss of genuine connections and relationships. In the pursuit of wealth, many find themselves surrounded by people who are drawn to their success rather than their true selves. I have 1,000 contacts in my phone, but no one I can call at 3 a.m. when I'm having a breakdown, admits Jennifer, a tech entrepreneur worth $30 million. Everyone wants something from me, a job, an investment, a favor. It's hard to know who your real friends are when you're successful. I sometimes miss the days when I was broke, but had genuine relationships. This isolation can lead to a profound sense of loneliness and disconnection, even in the midst of apparent social success. The very wealth that was supposed to bring freedom and happiness becomes a barrier to authentic human connection. But let's not forget about the physical toll we touched on earlier. It's not just about working long hours, it's about pushing the human body and mind to their absolute limits. Dr. Robert Chen, a sleep specialist who works with high-achieving executives, explains the devastating effects. I've seen patients who haven't had a full night's sleep in years. They rely on a cocktail of caffeine, energy drinks, and sometimes even prescription stimulants to keep going. The long-term effects are catastrophic. Increased risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and even early-onset dementia. This physical deterioration often goes hand in hand with substance abuse issues. The pressure to perform, to always be on, leads many to seek chemical assistance. It started with a drink to unwind after a stressful day, shares Thomas, a hedge fund manager. Then it was cocaine to keep me sharp during long trading sessions. Before I knew it, I was in rehab, trying to save my life and my career. The irony is, I started drinking and using to cope with the stress of making money and ended up spending a fortune on getting clean. This cycle of stress, substance abuse, and rehabilitation is all too common among the ultra-successful. The very drive that propels them to financial heights often leads to a crash in other areas of their lives. But perhaps one of the most profound sacrifices is the loss of personal values and integrity. In the cutthroat world of wealth accumulation, many find themselves compromising principles they once held dear.